Good morning, everyone. It is week 8, day 2. And the background is, of course, from Evangelion, one of the best animes. Get in the robot, Shinji. One of the best animes of all time. I don't know if you're supposed to say animes or anime. Depends if you're using English nouns or Japanese. I'm wearing my Nihongo Benkyo Naka, I think. Or Benkyo Chu. One or the other. Shirt's on right now. So we're going to talk, we're basically done with fallacies, I think. Let me just double check the fallacies slideshow here. Hand waving. Yeah, you guys all know hand waving, right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. Went over all those. So let's talk about cognitive biases. So cognitive biases are kind of related to fallacies, but they're a little bit different. So a fallacy is a bad argument. Okay, so a fallacy is when you make an argument for something. Japanese is the easiest language in the world to study. Bro, just trust me. What fallacy did I just make? Japanese is the easiest language in the world to learn. Just trust me. What kind of bad argument did I just make right there? Do a little review. In fact, let's maybe even pull up the quiz from last time and just double check on your performance. I'm going to need to log it in. Thingy. Give me 1 second. Okay. There we go. Ipsy Dixit. Yeah, that's Ipsy Dixit. Because I said so. So let's see how your performance is doing. Yeah, very good. Okay. It's always my face covering it up. There we go. All right. Yeah, good. Well done. All right. So. I think President Lincoln was the greatest president of all time because he won the Civil War and freed the slaves. Of course you think that. You're Republican. So that's an ad hominem, right? They're not dealing with the argument at all. They're attacking the person. A lot of people use the term ad hominem incorrectly. A lot of people use it just be like, you're a poo-poo head. You know, that's not an ad hominem. That's just a personal attack, right? An ad hominem is when you make a counter-argument that doesn't have anything to do with the argument. You're just attacking the person, not the argument. I don't know why I fell in love with you, so it has to be magic. Is appeal to ignorance. Anytime you have, I don't know why X, therefore Y, that's appeal to ignorance. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, a few people made appeal. Yeah, appeal to ignorance for some reason is a great distractor on these questions because people are like, he's ignorant, so it's appeal to ignorance. No. Appeal to ignorance is very specifically the form. I don't know why X, therefore Y. Okay. Keep eating candy, you'll get fat. Hey, look at how you eat. You're not one to speak. Tu quoque, right? Or you too. Or the pot calling the kettle black. Or appeal to hypocrisy. There's a lot of different ways you can say that. You all know that one, and that's pretty good. Person A. President Lincoln was the greatest president of all time. My professor said so. That is an appeal to authority. So he may or may not be the best president, but you are appealing to an authority. So that is ad verecundium. It does not make something true just because your professor said it to be true. Trust me, bro. That's the case. You got to trust me on this. You can't believe your professors all the time, myself included. Okay. I'm gonna maybe cast shade on my entire profession. In general, professors are, trying to tell you the truth, but it doesn't mean they're right. Right? Part of growing up was understanding just how much of my childhood education was either lies or gross simplifications, and it got to the point where I was just like, all right, nothing I learned as a kid is real, and then that was bad because like some things like brushing your teeth and like going to sleep on time and getting 8 hours of sleep a night are actually really important for your health. So, yeah, one of the things I do like to reemphasize in this class is just because you learn to spot problems in other people's arguments, doesn't mean they're all wrong. Okay? So, it's easy to become too critical or overly critical or just believe nothing, overly skeptical. But the thing is, some things like, you should brush your teeth, you should get 8 hours of sleep, you should, maybe not become addicted to drugs and things like those are actually you should exercise, you should watch what you eat. Actually really important. So, now I need proof. Maybe ask me after class and I will give you plenty of references that diet, sleep, and exercise are actually really important. Okay. So person A, President Lincoln was the greatest president of all time. My professor said so. So person A is making an appeal to authority. Person B says no, President Taft was greater. He was so great, he got stuck in a bathtub, which is not true, by the way. That's an urban myth about Taft. He did not get stuck in a bathtub from being 350 pounds. His bathtub was large, though. There's photographs of, I think, like FDR and like 4 other people sitting in Taft's bathtub. So it's a pretty nice bathtub. So person B is making an equivocation here. And probably a lot of you picked the other ones because we didn't cover equivocation in the last class. And of course, a quiz has to be about the last class, right? Wrong. Welcome to critical thinking. I will throw you a curveball all the time. So we had ad verecundium. You can see that was less, and we had equivocation, and that was less because it's all fair game. Every time, it's all fair game. So they are equivocating on the word greater. Like the person here says Lincoln is the greatest in terms of like majesty and the things, accomplishments and things like that. And the second person was using greater to mean large, like literally great. Okay. So let's talk about Facebook a little bit. What are some of the pros? What are some of the cons of Facebook? Lines are open. Submit your answers now. If you are watching this recording at home, post onto the Help Center. What are some good, because it's easy to hate on Facebook. So let's just start by saying, what are some of the good things about Facebook? What is something that Facebook does that is positive for the world under whatever ethical system you find to be compelling? Metaverse. What about Metaverse is a pro? To be with your friends in VR? Okay, that's cool. Do you have a VR headset, out of curiosity? When they're not with you? My mom's friends tell me I'm handsome. I think that's a pro. Yeah, that's true. My grandmother, before she passed away, was like, "Oh, such a handsome boy," And I don't know. It's made me feel good, Like, oh, so. Cons, terrible privacy. Let's just do pros first. I think we can pile on to Facebook with the cons. Let's try being positive. What are some nice things about Facebook? Gives older people a chance to share memes. That's true. Yeah, you get to see a lot of memes from a lot of people and realize things about them that you didn't necessarily know beforehand. Pros run unfounded by robots. When the robot apocalypse comes, Zuckerberg connects people easily. Yeah, and for me, like I use Facebook as sort of as a press release kind of thing. Like, hey, I'm in Rhode Island right now. And so people know where I am and like what I'm up to. Exercise. I thought you said extra fries. That's funny. Lizard people. Yeah. So I don't treat it as really the way that I think that a lot of people do, which is like they share things from each other and they share memes and I almost never hit the share button. Every once in a while, like if I see a joke from like one friend and I know another friend would like it, I'll share it directly onto their messenger. But I never share it onto my news feed. And helps keep you up to date with people you don't talk to anymore. Yeah, like I have friends in high school that I just don't talk to anymore. I would like to, probably. But I don't. High school is 20, 30 something years away. I don't know. But I get to see what they're up to. They're working as reporters in Virginia and I don't know. It's kind of nice. It's intuitive, sure. So, okay, let's talk about cons now. So what are some of the cons of Facebook? Open the floodgates. And we can do this exercise for Twitter and Reddit and whatever, TikTok. We'll just focus on Facebook because Zuckerberg getting called in front of Congress is kind of fun. Privacy, huge data leaks, very personal information, outdated, all true. Yeah. More power to Zuckerberg. Yeah. So it's an interesting question, right? Like, where should the balance of power be between Facebook, Congress or government, and the people, right? Where you got these three competing sort of interest groups, right? Facebook has its own interests. It wants to make money primarily, right? And in order for it to make money, it needs to harvest your personal information and package that up into advertising. Like, that's how Facebook makes its money. It takes information from you that you give it. Like, you say, hey, I'm a 30-year-old male interested in kangaroos or something, and then Facebook takes all that information and goes to the advertisers and like, hey, Australian kangaroo tour company. Here is a 30-year-old male who makes between $100,000 and $130,000 per year. He likes kangaroos. Could be a good, targeted advertising. Like, that's how they make their money, right? Like, the platform wouldn't be around if it didn't have advertising, right? So, and you give it to them, right? It's not like they steal it necessarily. Now, they do infer from your posts and things like that, things that you're interested in. A couple weeks ago, I showed you what Facebook thought it knew about me, and probably 80% of them, 90% of them were just wrong, which might explain some of the weird advertising I get at times on it. Misinformation, people with fake accounts, terrible customer service. They have customer service? I honestly didn't even know that they had customer service. That's funny. Sort of as shady hot or not app for colleges where people would rate you if you're hot or not. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, does that disqualify them today? It kind of goes back into the whole cancel culture thing, right? So because it started as hot or not, should we not use it today? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. So that's Facebook's interest. Facebook's interest is taking your personal information and reselling it to advertisers to target ads at you, right? Because advertisers benefit from, like, if you're a company in Australia that does tours of kangaroo country, right? If you advertise to like 7-year-old girls, they're not going to be able to afford the trip across the pond, you know what I mean, to Australia, and maybe they don't like kangaroos anyway, I don't know, right? And so advertisers want to be able to say, like, yes, I want people who love kangaroos to see my ads for a kangaroo tour. Like, that's actually something that's really beneficial for advertisers, right? Now, is it beneficial for you? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe you benefit from having ads for kangaroo tours instead of koala tours or something. I don't know. Maybe. Like, some people do like personalized ads, I guess. I always find them kind of creepy. Like, hey, we noticed you're studying Japanese. Like, really? How did you know that? Are you listening to me right now, Zuckerberg? Yeah. So, it's funny. So, yeah, and then you've Congress, right? And so Congress, so you got Facebook, you got Congress, and you got the people. So Congress's interests are primarily, I would say, in getting reelected, right? So, secondarily, I think politicians do want to representatives especially, they do want to represent the people in their district, right? So if you're a representative from the Central Valley and you represent farmers, you're going to be lobbying in Congress to try and get more water for farmers. Like, that's what representatives do. That said, they can't represent you if they don't get elected, right? So it depends on how cynical you want to be, but basically, one of the primary interests of every representative in Congress is getting reelected. And Facebook represents a threat to it, right? Because it was a game changer, right? And by Facebook, again, I mean all kind of social media. Because before, you do TV advertising, right? And if you're an incumbent, you get millions of dollars from being an incumbent because everybody wants to bribe you. Did I say bribe? Lobby you. They want to lobby you to do, what they want. And you would run TV ads and you just keep winning. Like, incumbents win, like, the vast majority of the time. And social media represents a low-cost alternative to that kind of hit politicians by surprise, like the election of Trump. A lot of people think had a lot to do with social media. All the polls showed that Hillary was going to win by a landslide, and Trump won instead. And so that costs like an aneurysm in the collective Washington establishment. And so that's why you started seeing like Zuckerberg getting called to the Hill, Jack Dorsey, the president of Twitter, getting called to the Hill. And politicians are all of a sudden real interested, because if it could cause a presidential election to flip, that's big news, right? So politicians have been thinking about regulating social media for a long time. Currently they have what's called Section 230 immunity, which prevents them from really being liable for anything on their platform. If I'm getting this right, Section 230. Yeah. So Section 230 says anything that I write on Facebook, Facebook is not liable for. Right. And so various people, Republicans and Democrats both, have been talking about repealing Section 230 or amending Section 230 to eliminate the sort of broad immunity that Facebook has for things on its platform. And so that's why you saw after the 2016 election, a lot of people in Congress going like, fake news, right? Misinformation. And originally the term fake news was a Democrat term. It was actually used by Hillary to explain why Trump lost. Hillary came up with probably a dozen reasons why she lost. But one of the ones that got traction was the notion of fake news. Like Russian misinformation bots were running these fake news stories, accusing Hillary of all sorts of nefarious things. And Trump took the term and co-opted it and used the term fake news to refer to CNN, right? Which was a bit of history that I think a lot of people have forgotten at this point. They think the term fake news was a Trump invention. It was not. It was a co-option of Hillary's. And so, for the past 6 years now, like Congress has been like paying a close attention to all this stuff, because it's a powerful force. It's a powerful force in our society. And if you haven't watched any of the times when Zuckerberg or Dorsey or the other people have been called in front of Congress, it's actually kind of a fun watch. Like, I normally don't recommend people watching C-SPAN if you want to have a good time, but it's actually really funny watching Zuckerberg trying to explain email to a senator. Now, Mr. Zuckerberg, I'm having trouble getting my printer to work. I've tried turning it off and back on again. Anyway, so the third big group is the people, right? Like the people who use Facebook, and the people who don't use Facebook. Because even if you don't use Facebook, you're still impacted by it. How? Anyone know? Let's say that you've deleted Facebook and gone to the gym. Standard internet advice. My life's in shambles. What do I do? Delete Facebook, go to the gym, right? What can Facebook do to you, even if you don't use Facebook? Anyone know? Lines are open. Answer now. Can you repeat your question? Yes. Let's say that you have no Facebook account. What can Facebook do to you despite you not using Facebook, having no Facebook account? What can it do to you? Tries to get information out from your other apps, yeah. Every time you visit a website that has a Facebook like button on it, it reports your information to Facebook, even if you don't log in. Data, yeah. So it will build a shadow profile of your computer. Even though you have not created an account, Facebook knows that you are a 30-year-old male with an income between $100,000 and $120,000 who likes kangaroos. Because they track you around the web. Every time you go to a website that has a Facebook like button on it, it's reporting your IP address to Facebook, and Facebook builds a profile of you anyway. And if you then make a Facebook account, it'll link your shadow profile to your real profile. That's one thing. Another thing is, do any of you have friends that like to tag friends in photographs? Right? Click on the face. That's Francisco Cardinal. That's Arvinda. Right? You are that person? Yeah. So guess what? Let's say that Francisco, you take a photograph of your friend Eric Yang and you tag him. Facebook now knows what Eric's face looks like, even though Eric doesn't use Facebook. And so Facebook actually recently deleted their entire facial recognition database because it was so problematic that even Facebook went, okay, yeah, maybe that's a little bit too much. So bought Oculus and had to make an account on Facebook to use it. Yeah, and so if you get banned off Facebook, you can't play your VR games anymore. That's evil. So so when Francisco's taking photos of his friends, up until very recently when they turned the system off, it was actually spying on your friends, right? Like, you just think you're like tagging them, but what Facebook's doing is building a facial recognition database of every American in the country, well, really every person worldwide, right? Because let's say Eric doesn't use Facebook and Francisco tags him. Okay, that face there is Eric, and every time you do it, it trains the model a little bit better, and then Eric could be walking down the street and Facebook's camera would be like, that's Eric Yang, even though he's never made an account. I can recognize him. Drone strike. Wait, no, that's not yet. Coming soon. So, yeah, well, that technology actually does exist, right? Where you have cameras over a crowd and people are walking down the crowd, facial recognition technology tags each person in the crowd, follows them around. You can track somebody from camera to camera as they wander around a mall. Yeah, all that technology exists. And the facial recognition can be trained using Facebook photos. And in fact, it was until very recently where they said they deleted the entire facial database. I don't know if I believe them, but, they said they did. So that's good, right? Yay, Facebook. Lies. Sounds like the video game Watch Dogs. Yeah, it is. But it's not like a hypothetical. It actually exists. And like I think I've told you before, like I've talked to vendors who watch faces in a movie theater and tracks their emotions. And it has like an emotion graph of everybody in the audience of the movie theater over time. And then they don't do this in like regular movie theaters, but like screenings. They do that to see which parts of the movie work, which parts of the movie don't work, and then they go back and tweak the parts that don't work. And this technology exists in malls. Security systems all over the world can track people from one place to another. If you start behaving suspiciously, like you go up and start like messing with doorknobs, like you're in a mall and you go up to like an employee, door and you're like tugging on it, like AI will flag it, like that's suspicious behavior. Maybe it'll go send a security guard to go talk to you. Plus 1,000 social credit. Yeah, the whole Chinese social credit system is a whole lecture in and of itself. But China tracks people as they get on the street, what they're doing, what you up to, and they'll send people by to talk to you. One of the interesting things about China is the relationship of labor to society is a lot different from America. In America, it would be kind of weird for like a cop to just kind of stand in a park that's 50 feet by 50 feet big, right? Just full time, there's a cop standing there. Like, no way. Like, you're paying that cop $100,000, $130,000 a year to stand on a little piece of turf, quarter acre of land. China, yeah. I was just in Beijing, and there's just a dude. He just stands there all day. Probably trades off with other people, but there's just a cop there on this little park that's this big. And I was in an internet cafe in Beijing, and China has a firewall on the country, right, that blocks things like Facebook and Google and news stories and things like that. And so I figured out that I could create a secure tunnel out of China that wasn't blocked to my server back in America, and then I could tunnel out from there and read the real news, right? And so I'm feeling very clever about myself. I'm not in my hotel room doing this. I'm in a internet cafe, and I'm like, hee, look at me, hacker man in Beijing. And then a cop walks in, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a curveball. And he starts walking around, he's looking at every person's computer, and I'm like, Alt F4, boom, out the side door, I was like, well played, China, well played. So I don't know if he was there to try and find me, but like, yeah, they just sit there and walk around, and like, it's a different world. Honestly, I was expecting it hit us with a VPN sponsorship. Well, today's lecture is brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN, the most Nordic of all VPNs. It gives you online security with just one click. NordVPN. No, I'm kidding. All right. So, okay. So, yeah. So basically, Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of Reddit, all of the things that they're designed for is to drive engagement. This is an important term if you're going to work and live in the modern world. Is engagement. Engagement is how much time you spend on their platform. And anyway, face bigger. So that's one of the, like, they have constant, like, internet companies constantly are doing metrics. They're constantly measuring how successful is their product. And one of the big things they do to see if it's successful is how much time people spend playing it. The Pokemon Go people are probably watching how many minutes is Pokemon Go open per day. How many times per day do you launch Pokemon Go? And they do everything they can to get the app open longer because it takes up your mental, attention is one of the biggest currencies of the modern age, because you can only really pay attention to one thing at a time. We think we can multitask, we really can't. We just task switch back and forth, and it's not efficient. And so what all of these companies are competing for is your attention. It's something called the attention economy, where all these people are fighting for your brain space, for you to pay attention to them. Oh, let me go onto my Gmail account, right? They don't charge you for Gmail, right? But they want you in the Google ecosystem. And they do this for free. It costs them millions of dollars to run Gmail. Like, it's not free for them. It costs a lot of electricity, a lot of data center power, things like that. Use code Kearney for 50% off. But the reason why they do that is because they want your attention. That's what they're fighting over. And also, when you use Gmail, they get to read your emails. And if they read your emails, they know what you're interested in. Hey, you want to go swimming on Sunday? Okay, Google now knows that you're interested in swimming. And they can target ads at you. Google reads all of your email and uses that to build a profile on you. That's why I don't use Gmail. So, yeah, every single one of your emails, they're encrypted in transit. But when they get there, Google's like, oh, very interesting. She's getting married. That's worth some money. And then all of a sudden you start getting like ads for like bridal, veils and, cake and things like that. It's because they read your email and they build a profile and they're getting married, and that's worth money. And so that's why it's free, because they make a lot of money selling your... They don't sell your emails. Like, nobody else can read your emails except you, right? But Google does, kind of. Like, they build a profile. Right? You're going off the internet now? You didn't know that? Yeah. That's why it's free. It's why I'm not very happy that Fresno State requires you to use a Gmail account. Right? Because you are feeding the Google monster. You're feeding their appetite for data about you. Every time you send an email to me saying, hey, I'm sick right now, I just got COVID, I can't make class, guess who knows? Uncle Google. They know that you got COVID now, and they can start selling you orange juice and cup of noodles and NyQuil or something. Would Outlook be better? I don't think so. but at least I don't get ads from Microsoft. So I use Outlook for that reason, simply because I don't use Bing, and so there's no capability of Microsoft to deliver me ads. I have ad blockers turned on Hotmail or Outlook or whatever, and so it's not as big a threat to me as Google is, because Google's tied in with my phone, right? If I hit this, that's a Google search right there, right? Pedro Fernandez, yo no fui. Oh, interesting. Fue is an album by Mexican singer Pedro Fernandez. It was released on September 12th, 2000. The album won the Latin Grammy Award for Best Ranchero Album in 2001. Good to know, Google. Thank you. And Google knows that because I was at Batter Up this morning, and there was some music playing in the back, and I was like, I search on Google, what song is that? And then Google turns on the microphone, listens to the song, and then pulls up a search for the music that I was listening to at the time. So, yeah. Now, if you want to have safe mail, you can't use a free solution. Any free email solution is going to be spying on you. Sorry. That's why it's free. There's a phrase... if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, here's the thing. Even if you do pay for the product, oftentimes you're still the product. Look at Microsoft Windows. The whole point of the most two recent versions of Microsoft Windows is for Microsoft to be able to spy on you. Right? I was incensed when I went to Microsoft's privacy dashboard and found Microsoft had a log of every program I had run on my computer. You played Path of Exile from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Tuesday, December. What? I never gave you permission for that, Microsoft. Yeah. Every time they update, they just kind of turn some privacy settings on, and or by on I mean telemetry, like uploading things on you. And let's see if I can get this thing to focus. Yeah, even though I constantly disable everything that Microsoft wants to know about me ever, they update and they turn them back on, and then they start uploading what you're doing on your computer to Microsoft. Thanks, Microsoft. You're evil. So. Yeah, those would be worries, and it's not like they're using them to target people with drone strikes, yet, but still shady. I never gave you permission to upload information on me. They're doing it anyway. Microsoft has no opt out button. If you're using Windows right now, you can go to the control panel settings and go to telemetry. And there is no option to turn off telemetry. Telemetry means you are uploading information about yourself, about your computer to Microsoft. There is no option to disable it. There's only option to upload everything or upload the important things. There's no off. Upload everything about me, every app that I run, all that stuff. Upload some of the information. Those are your two options on the Microsoft telemetry page. So, yeah, true story. Okay, let's get into cognitive biases. That's enough. Facial recognition, tagging friends. Yeah, if you use your Google phone, your Android, and you're like, Simran lives at this address. Now Google knows where Simran lives, despite her being a complete privacy nut. Her being a complete privacy nut, and never engaging at all in the Google ecosystem, because I have entered her address into my phone. That gets uploaded to Google. Now Google knows her address. And so the only way you can have Google not know your address is if you tell none of your friends where you live. Because once you tell them where you live, they will punch it into their phone, and now Google knows where you live. It is, I know one person who has been able to pull that off. He's a friend of mine. He's a lawyer for Adobe, the people who make Photoshop and things like that. And he saw, this was like 15 years ago, he saw the direction Silicon Valley was going, and he wanted none of it. So he moved to an undisclosed location in the mountains, essentially. I don't know where he lives. My friend who's his friend, doesn't know where he lives. We've never visited. We can't visit. He uses burner phones, and if we want to get a hold of him, we can't. He contacts us. Right? So, water having salt to make you thirsty, Dasani. So, yeah, that's really the only way that you could go off the grid, is by completely cutting your connections to everybody, and it's a problem. The NSA scoops up all the data that it wants. American data is supposed to be masked, which means your name doesn't appear on the data, but you can just click and it'll show you who the person is. So it's just a fig leaf, really. The FBI can request your books you've checked out from the library. They send a national security letter to the Woodward Park branch of the library saying, hey, we hear that Emily has checked out some books. Could you send us a list of all the books that she has checked out? And by the way, we prohibit you from telling her that we've asked this information. That's also quite common. The FBI sends out thousands of national security letters per year. And when they do that, they're prohibited from revealing the fact that they've turned over your books that you've checked out. So, yeah, there's a lot of privacy concerns out there. All right, so let's get into cognitive biases. That's enough on privacy for now. So there's a lot of cognitive biases. Like, I don't even know if you can read this. This is very small font here. So, like I said last week, a cognitive bias and a fallacy are kind of related, but they're different. A fallacy is a bad argument. A cognitive bias is a shortcut the brain takes that is mistaken thinking. Okay? This thing really just doesn't want to focus on me. Let's see if I can move back a little bit, maybe. Nope, still blurry. So the human brain has to deal with a lot of information in the world, and it is hard to get a true and accurate view of the world quickly. And a lot of times we have to react to things quickly. I'm still not in focus. There we go. Okay, I'll just put my face like right here. There we go. So usually a lot of these biases can be countered by just thinking about things slowly, right? Like if any of you have ever bought a car, right? Do any of you impulse purchase cars? Because I don't. When I buy a car, like I sit down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be driving this thing for the next 7 to 10 years, because that's usually about how often I buy a car. And I do my research, you know what I mean? Like I sit down, I read consumer reports, and I'm like, all right, okay, the Hyundai, Genesis, it's a little bit high end for me, but it seems like a good car. And I go in there and I'm like, maybe a Genesis, maybe a Sonata. And I go in there and I sit in the car and I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't fit in. I don't fit in this whatsoever. And then I'm like, all right, back to the drawing board. Building a bunker, cutting everything off. Yeah, he is committed. And he's the only. Richard Stallman is kind of the same way. Like you can't it's very hard to track Richard Stallman. We'll talk about him some other time. Yeah, my point is though, like when you think about things slowly, and then I go back to the drawing board, I'm like, okay, so I need a car that can fit somebody who's almost 2 meters tall, me, right? So I don't want to get an SUV though, and then I really think about it, and then by the time I get to purchasing a car, like I know the price range, and I negotiate, and I feel like pretty good about that decision. That's different from like when you're just like like I was in Rhode Island a couple days ago, and I needed to get a gift for my wife and my kid, and so I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna walk around and just find something, right? And I'm like, oh, look, that T-shirt has the same logo as my daughter's elementary school. Impulse purchase. That's funny. It's a college. It has the same logo. There you go. Present for my daughter. Walk around. Oh, that looks cool for my wife. Pick that up. And when we make snap decisions, when we make fast thinking decisions, a lot of times we make mistakes. And these mistakes come from cognitive biases, which aren't even necessarily a bad thing, because you need to be able to react quickly and make quick decisions a lot of the time. But a lot of times, like if you're making a serious decision, like should I marry somebody, should I buy a house, you really want to take your time on it. There's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Which is a book. There we go. It talks about system 1, fast, instinctive, emotional. System 2 is deliberate and logical. And so what we're really focusing on in this class is, in critical thinking, is trying to encourage more deliberate thinking, more logical, more rational thinking, and not just being guided by emotion and instinct. That said, it's not bad, right? Like if somebody throws a brick at you, like you want to dodge. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to sit there and be like, is that brick really coming at me? I don't know. Like, you know? So, yeah. So a lot of these things just have to do with the fact that oftentimes we just have to make snap judgments. Okay, so let's get into it. Brain takes shortcuts, false generalizations, sloppy thinking, but it's how we function in a fuzzy, imperfect world. We sometimes just have to do it. Okay, so let's go into some cognitive biases. These are the things that sort of underlie fallacies, although some of them I will call fallacies, like this one. So let's say that you've been living in a house and you've been fixing it and fixing it and fixing it, or you have a car that just breaks down constantly. You just keep putting money into it, fixing the brake lines, fixing the brakes, fixing the tires, fixing the engine, fixing the transmission, fixing the wind. And your friends are like, dude, just sell the car. The car sucks. Just sell the car. You're like, no, I've put $50,000 into fixing it. I'm sticking with this thing. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. Your friends are probably doing the math like, yeah, you're going to lose more money fixing this horrible car than you would if you just bought a new car. You know what I mean? So your friends are thinking about it rationally because it's not their car, but because you've invested so much into it, you want to stick with it. And that's called the sunk cost fallacy. So you've got a big project. You could either spend 150 hours rewriting what you have, or 100 just doing it from scratch. A lot of people will spend the 150 because they don't want to feel like they wasted their time. It's a horrible feeling to feel like you've wasted your money, you've wasted your time on something. And so we will irrationally stick with something, even though a lot of times it's more optimal to just throw it away and just be like, all right, I'm just selling this car, whatever, I'm done with you. I'm going to go get a new car instead, or a new used car instead. Vegas says impulsive decisions are good. Yeah, and Vegas is designed to spur, impromptu decision making. I'm going to throw down $100 on. Yeah. So, sunk cost fallacy is when it's cheaper to walk away from something, but people stick with it because they've been sticking with it. I don't want to be seen as inconsistent. Survivorship bias. All successful CEOs take fantastic risks. Therefore, since I want to be a success, I will take fantastic risks. What's the problem with this way of thinking? And this is a big problem if you ever read books on like successful people, right? If you read books on successful people and you don't read books on unsuccessful people, you're going to be engaging in survivorship bias. Just because somebody took a risk and worked, it doesn't mean it will for you. Not everyone will be successful. Yeah, what if, it's like playing the lottery, right? The lottery system always focuses on the winners, right? Anytime you see an ad for like the lottery or a scratcher or something, it's like, Nico won $1 million playing scratchers, I've never once seen a lottery ad like focus on the person who spends $100 a week on scratchers and has never won anything. Right? Like most people, or they win like $1 or $2 here and there, but the lottery ads never, Vegas never focuses on the people that go to Vegas with $30,000 to burn and walk out with zero. They don't focus on those people, right? It's called survivorship bias, right? So the fallacy comes about from it's a form of cherry picking, right? All the people that won the lottery became rich. Since I want to become rich, I should play the lottery. It's fallacy. It's bias. So the fallacy, this is a fallacious argument, right? Like quite obviously. Right? If you only focus on the people who win, you're cherry picking. That's a fallacy. Now, survivorship bias is because when we read about successful people, we read about them because we want to be successful. What traits in common do these successful CEOs have? And I have lots of friends that read those kinds of books, like 30 Secrets of Successful People and things like that. And a lot of these successful people say, you got to take risks, you got to mortgage your house and put all your money down and slam it down and make a new restaurant, And 90% of new restaurants fail in the first year, right? It's hard to run a restaurant. I don't know if do any of you have any of you started a restaurant or worked for a new restaurant or worked in food service, at like not like a McDonald's or something, but like at like a new coffee shop. People start coffee shops all the time. They're hard. It's hard to have a successful coffee shop, So because somebody dropped out of college and became a millionaire means I should drop out of college. Right, that's exactly it. Like Bill Gates was a college dropout. He should drop out of college. Survivorship bias. So, the problem with studying only people that become successful and trying to learn lessons from them is that, you're not gonna get a balanced picture, right? Everything in critical thinking boils down to weighing pros versus cons. That is really what critical thinking is all about. Taking a nuanced view, understanding the risks and understanding the benefits of your decisions. If you get that, I am more than happy that you took this class, right? Because so much of our society is focused only on, like in this case, only on the rewards. Mortgage your house, sell your car, sell your dog, I don't know, and put it all down on a new coffee shop in Clovis. You know, that's how you get rich. Yeah, because it worked for me. You know, if it could work for me, it could work for you. Somebody's got to win the lottery. So no, you got to look at the risk and rewards. Like some acquaintances of mine started the Crazy Squirrel, and they did their research. You know what I mean? Like they sat down and they said, all right, how much money is there in magic cards and board games? Like how much floor space do we need? How much gaming space do we need? How should we charge people to play board games in our store? They spent a long time researching the market, researching the costs. How much does labor cost? You know, should we sell snacks and drinks? You know, all this kind of stuff. They researched the hell of it, and the Crazy Squirrel has been a very popular and successful business ever since. You know, like you can't just look at success cases. You have to study risk versus reward for everything in life. College dropout coffee shop. Yeah. Okay, we've already done correlation is causation. Skip that. That's a very pervasive cognitive bias because when our brains see things moving together, we assume that they're causing each other, right? Like if I pull on a string and a little toy mouse moves, our brains are just hardwired to think, okay, because I'm pulling on the string, the mouse could be moving. In reality, they might not be attached at all, right? Like I might just have like a puppet or something, and I'm doing this with one hand and I'm moving the other hand, but our brains will see a causal relationship. We'll see the string pulling the thing, even though there isn't one, right? It's a problem with our brain. It's not a problem because a lot of the times it's right. You know, if I drop this, you know, every time I drop it, the thing falls, right? You know, in that case, it's right. Me dropping the bottle caused it to fall. But it can be fooled, like with the Fannie Mae example, right? Okay, last one. And this is one that ties in with what we were talking about with social media, and it probably applies to everybody here that's listening to us. Maybe not everybody, but like probably. Negative perception bias is an incredibly powerful cognitive bias, and you can get into like the evolutionary roots of it if you want to, but basically, let's say that you stand up in front of your speech class and you give a speech. You're saying, I think that Rammstein is the best, band ever. And you give a 5-minute presentation on Rammstein. And then after class, you go and you talk to your friends. You're like, hey, how did my speech go? And one of your friends said, oh, I loved it. Your other friend says, oh man, yeah, Rammstein, what a great choice of topic. Loved your talk. And you go around all your friends and they're like, oh yeah, it's good, it's really good. And then you get to your last train, and your friend's like, you kind of suck, dude. It wasn't a good speech. I was bored out of my mind. What is going to affect you more emotionally? The 10 people that told you that your speech was great, or the one person that told you that they were bored and didn't like your speech? Which one hits you more? Which one are you going to remember? Post on Discord. I think we all know what the answer is, but post on Discord. Yeah, the one who said it was boring. And it ruins your whole day sometimes, right? You just walk around like, if you just have that one negative interaction with somebody, you're at work and you're walking around and you come around a corner and almost run into somebody and they say, hey, F you, and they walk off. Like it ruins your day, like that. Like we are highly sensitive to negative criticism, most of us. Right? To a certain extent, you have to develop a thick skin, especially if you deal with trolls on the internet. You sort of learn to shrug it off. It's one of the one of the only positives about dealing with internet morons is you eventually just develop a thick skin. You're like, okay, whatever. But yeah, just like that one negative interaction at work, like, hey, screw you, moron, F you, or you're driving to work and somebody flips you off, like it can ruin your entire day. And the reason for that is because we are highly, highly sensitive to criticism and negative social interactions. And the evolutionary basis of it is that if your tribe doesn't like you, they can exile you from the tribe and then you die. And so we're very nervous and anxious about upsetting our tribe. Now, the trouble is we live in a global world with global Twitter, and there will be somebody on Twitter that hates you no matter what you do or what you say. And that's a problem. Because you're posting like, hey, support E2N, I love E2N, green tea. And somebody on Twitter goes like, only morons drink E2N, and it ruins your day. And so now you have the possibility of any internet moron ruining your day. And that's a really, really, really big problem for our psyches and our mental health. It's one of the reasons why I refuse to use Twitter. And on Facebook, I have all public, everything's turned off. The only people that can interact with me on Facebook are my friends and family, right? There are no opportunities for internet morons to be like, E2N, the hell? Why are you drinking garbage tea like? No, there's no possibility for that because of this bias. I care about my mental health, and so I just choose not. Whenever I play on Xbox, I have no voice chat ever. Whenever I play any online game, the only people I can ever talk to are my friends. And it kind of shocked me when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2 online, when I was like talking to my friend, and just a random person walks by and just like, oh yeah, that was a fun game, and he rides off. I'm like, wait, people in the game can hear us talking? He's like, yeah, it's a public voice chat. Like when you talk, just people within like 30 yards of you can hear you talking. I was like, oh, I thought it was just the two of us that were talking. We were like talking about personal stuff, and a guy just walks by. He's like, yeah, you should totally say that, and walks off. I was like, oh damn. I love the voice pin for Red Dead. Yeah, it actually turned out to be kind of funny, but like I was just like, it was very out of character for me. It's like I still remember when Greg Dreher criticized a D&D module I wrote in 1999. And I walked around a convention. I wrote this game. It premiered at a large conference, thousands of people playing. And I was walking around just listening to all the people running my game, hearing my words in text being spoken at table after table. The wizard steps out and says in a harsh voice, I'm hearing my own words echoing around this hall. Like, it was such a cool feeling. And I'm walking around just like, hey, how's the game going, And everybody's like, oh, I love it, it's great. And then this one guy was like, I don't really like it, it's kind of boring. Greg Dreher, still remember his name now, 23 years later. And so when a friend of mine rewrote my game for 5th edition D&D, it's dedicated to Greg Dreher. Who's now in LA of all places. So I actually do still see him at Strategicon, even though this was at the time in the Midwest somewhere. Okay. So yeah, we're basically out of time. But basically negative perception bias very much affects our mental health. It affects the risks that we take, because oftentimes we won't speak up and say something because we're afraid that somebody will be critical of us. And so we just keep quiet. I know I do, like, if somebody says something in like a faculty meeting, I just basically never criticize anybody, because I don't want to get into that negative interaction. I just keep my mouth shut. I'll very rarely like disagree with people in a faculty meeting, like I just sit there and nod and listen. And to be fair, like they kind of do the same thing. And so it actually kind of generates kind of a collegial atmosphere. Like it's not necessarily that bad. But it does have a cooling effect on the words we say, the actions we take. Maybe that's not always bad, but it's kind of bad, And we can be so afraid to fail, like we make dumb choices. Like we're so afraid of risk taking that it's bad sometimes. So. I had to private my PlayStation account because it got out of hand. Was banned twice. Don't be perma-banned just for defending yourself. Yeah. Yep. So I just do everything I can to not deal with random people on the internet because of this cognitive bias here. Okay, so that's our class for today. Thanks for coming out. There will be a quiz on these biases up in a little bit. Remember, Space Invaders is due on Friday. If you have any questions about the scratching of the assignment, if you need help scratching the record, post on the Help Center, and either me or somebody who's done the assignment already will help you with it. Feel free to copy and paste as much as you want. Don't worry about plagiarism on this. Okay. and then do the fallacies scavenger hunt. That's due next Monday. All right. Peace out. Hope you guys had fun.